A pleasant good morning, everybody. Welcome in TDN Daily, Monday edition of the show. Kicking off a brand new series here today. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. Enjoyed whatever festivities they took part in over the weekend. And we are going to go through the transfer portal over the course of the next, couple of weeks, however long it takes, however long we want to do this series. But I thought ahead of the college football season, it would be wise for us to look at some of the college transfers and where some of these players are going to be playing next season and look at what maybe we can expect from them. So, good morning, Heldy. Good morning, Bailey. Good morning, Taylor B. Good morning to everybody who's hopping in here. A little under the weather. Got a bit of a cough, so probably a shorter show today just because by myself, not really in a situation where I can talk for 35, 40 minutes without having some coughing fits. So, got the trusty water nearby. We'll try to get through all these players, but just a pre-warning of what to expect here today on the show. What up, Lance Sanderson, Taylor B, Graham Mertz season? He's on the list. We've got some stats about Graham Mertz that we'll discuss here on the show. Got 9 names that I want to discuss, highlight what they've done in their career before going to their new destination. Then we can kind of get into what we think about them at their new destination. So that's going to be the focus here of today's show. I'm not going to waste any time. Again, a little bit under the weather, dealing with the cough. So I want to utilize the voice while it still exists in pretty good form here this morning. So we'll go to this screen. Good morning, everybody, and I'm going to press record for the podcast audience, and we're going to jump right in. So getting started a little bit early, but I want to make sure we can get to all these players before my voice gives way here on a Monday. So I'm going to press record, and we can get this show on the road. And welcome into the Monday edition of the TDN Daily podcast. Chris Schubert back with you here once again on the show. Hope you are all having a fantastic start to your Monday. Hope you all had a great weekend. We've got a fun one in store for you here on the show today, starting up a bit of a new series here on the show. We are going to look at the transfer portal in college football. The college football season just a few short weeks away from starting, right? The end of August is right around the corner as we are about to turn the calendar into July. So less than 2 months probably away from the start of the college football season. And listen, in today's college football with the transfer portal, you can forget very easily where players are playing next season. So consider this a bit of a refresher course for you. And this is not looking at these players through a draft lens. This is just looking at some of the top names that are changing teams ahead of the 2023 college season. And we'll look at each one of them, evaluate what they've done up to this point, evaluate their new situation. We'll have a great conversation about them here on the show today. And I'm sure there will be some names that I missed in doing this list, doing this research. We've got 9 names here on the show today. I'm sure the live YouTube chat will be sure to throw those names into the mix as well, but pick some of the bigger names at the position in college football to highlight here on the show. But before we get started, do have to let everybody know probably a little bit of a shorter show today and maybe for the next couple of days here. I told the pre-show chat live on YouTube, dealing with a little bit of a cough in the voice. And so when you're doing the show by yourself and there's not a partner you can hand it off to in order to maybe cough and get through it, we're going to try to keep the voice as fresh as possible. So we're going to try to limit these shows here so we can try to keep the voice as fresh as we can for the remainder of the week. So just a little bit of a warning, if you hear me go silent for a second or two and you're watching live on YouTube, it's probably because I'm coughing. You'll probably be able to see me cough here on the show. So just a little bit of a heads up there, but let's talk about these college transfer quarterbacks for the 2023 season. And I've got them in an order. It's not really in any semblance of an order that's like ranking them, just in the order that when doing research and compiling names and finding these guys, this is the order I wrote them down in. And again, we are not evaluating these guys as 2023 draft prospects. We are just looking at this through the lens of being a college football fan and players that have been in the game for a little bit, that are transferring, that I'm certainly going to be keeping an eye on this season. And let's start with a guy who is was a stalwart in the Big 12, was a guy there for a pretty long time. Yes, Taylor B, just quarterbacks today here on the show, 9 quarterbacks for us to discuss. This first guy, a big name, I think, in the Big 12, had a 4-year career at a college playing as a starting quarterback for said team, and is now transferring to a spot where he's in a battle for the starting job there. And interesting that a guy with limited eligibility left is transferring to a place where he doesn't maybe necessarily have the starting job on lock, and that being Spencer Sanders, who's going to go from Oklahoma State to Ole Miss. And I've got his numbers here from the 4 years that he was at Oklahoma State. And this was a guy that 2,000-yard passer at minimum each of the 4 years that he was a starter. Really, the best 2 years of his career came the last couple of years. 2021 played in 13 games, had 2,800 passing yards, 26 total touchdowns. And then last year, 2,642 passing yards and 25 total touchdowns. Last year was 5th in the Big 12 in passing yards last year and tied for 3rd in passing attempts. And I think that is a very important number to bring up, that he was tied for 3rd in passing attempts, because we know what Ole Miss is going to do with their quarterbacks. They're going to throw the ball quite a bit. But what makes Spencer Sanders so interesting is here's a guy who has a track record of being a starter, albeit maybe not a high-profile starter, but has been a starter for multiple seasons at a Big 12 program, Power 5 school, and now is going to transfer in with limited eligibility left, is going to transfer into a place as a quote-unquote veteran in the college football landscape, and is going to be battling it out with Jackson Dart. And I think they have another quarterback, Howard, who's a transfer from LSU, that's also in that room. So they've got a competition that's going to kind of play itself out here between now and the start of the season. And so really interesting to see how that plays out. Bailey says that quarterback battle is very interesting. Dart, Sanders, and Howards could all win that job, I think. Yeah, and you know, the turnovers might be the concern with Spencer Sanders. And so the reason why I wanted to highlight him is not because, you know, again, we're not talking about these guys as draft prospects, but I look at a guy like Spencer Sanders and I go, okay, limited eligibility left, and we decide to go to Ole Miss. Now, Lane Kiffin might have put on a really good recruiting pitch to be able to get him to go there. So let's see what this looks like. But a quarterback battle to keep an eye on, because you have a guy who's an incumbent in Jackson Dart, and Spencer Sanders decides to go there. Does Spencer Sanders know something that we don't, that he is basically going to be handed that job, and he's the type of quarterback that that Lane Kiffin wants? And Bailey brings up a really good point that, and I was doing research this morning, compiling these numbers after getting all these names down, and everything I read was Jackson Dart had a really great spring, and is running away, not running away, but is certainly taking the lead for the starting job. So really, really interesting to see how this plays out. You know, maybe he's going to be the starter, maybe he's not, but I do think an interesting name to put on the list here. And Taylor B says it's not even an offense that would really make him more NFL ready. Another thing that we can kind of makes us a little bit puzzled about this here for Spencer Sanders, but he's our first guy on the list. Next guy I want to discuss, Brennan Armstrong, going from Virginia to NC State. And this is a guy who didn't do a whole lot the first 2 years of his career, 2018 and 2019. And really, the big year that jumps off the page for Brennan Armstrong is that 2021 season. 11 games played, 4,449 passing yards, 40 total touchdowns combined through the air and on the ground, 10 interceptions. He's Virginia's quarterback leader in career passing yards, career passing touchdowns, career 200, 300, and 400-yard games. And when you look at that 2021 season, which is the best year of Brennan Armstrong's career, was the ACC leader in passing yards, and total yards per play. And so this is a guy that is he's a year removed from the best year of his career, but that's the kind of potential. That's the kind of high ceiling that you are looking for in Brennan Armstrong. Yes, Sam Pete, that is exactly who we're talking about here on the show. And so you have a guy who has shown to be one of the top quarterbacks in the ACC and put up those big numbers in 2021, but had a really, really bad year in 2022 in comparison. Played in just as many games. He played 11 in 2021, played 10 in 2022, so just right there. 22-10 on the passing yards, 13 total touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Just a far cry from what he was in 2021. And like I said, he's Virginia's career quarterback leader in like everything. Just go to Brennan Armstrong's Wikipedia page, and there's just a list of accolades that he's the leader in. So if he can be the 2021 version of himself, you look at him going to NC State, and that's pretty solid. That's a great quarterback that they'll have there in the ACC. And the reason why Brennan Armstrong can go from UVA to NC State is because of the next quarterback on our list, Devin Leary, going from NC State to Kentucky. And same kind of story with Brennan Armstrong. We look at 2021 as the year that we talk a lot about. We talk with Brennan Armstrong as the peak, what you're looking for. When you look at Devin Leary, 2021, very similar. Played in 12 games, 3,400 passing yards, 37 total touchdowns, 5 interceptions. His 2022 season cut short due to a pectoral injury. He's now going to go to Kentucky, replace Will Levis, go be the starter there. And you look at 2021, and I feel more comfortable putting stock into 2021 with Devin Leary because he got hurt and his 2022 campaign was shortened. But you look at a guy who was 4th among ACC quarterbacks in yards, 3rd in passing touchdowns, 4th in passing attempts, and 3rd in completion percentage. So had really high volume, 4th in passing attempts, but was 3rd in completion percentage. So that's another big name that's moving in the transfer portal, going to Kentucky. They have a need. They have an opening with Will Levis gone. And so you got some chess pieces moving around in the ACC because Devin Leary goes from NC State to Kentucky, opens up an opportunity for Brennan Armstrong to stay in the ACC and go from Virginia to NC State. Sportsnut says, late, have you talked about DJU yet? No, we will get to him here in a second. Sam Teet says, Jack Plummer going to Louisville makes me happy. Nice statue in the pocket for Clemson to sack. And then preach the gospel of Kent State to UCLA transfer Colin Schlee. Is that how you pronounce his name? Not on the list, but appreciate the shouts for Jack Plummer and Colin Schlee. Sports not easy. Don't get ahead of yourself. Hudson Card on the list here in just a second. You mentioned DJU. That's the next guy we'll discuss here. And look, I'll just present the numbers for DJU, and then we can have a conversation about him. But in 2020, 9 games, 914 passing yards, 9 total touchdowns, no interceptions. Then 2021, 13 games played, 2,246 passing yards, 13 total touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Last year, 13 games played, 2,521 passing yards, 29 total touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So when I look at DJU, you look at the statistics. Statistically, he's gotten better each of the 3 seasons. Hasn't reached maybe necessarily the ceiling or the hype or the buzz that was surrounding DJU. But I look at the situation that he's going to put himself in at Oregon State. It's a team plays some really good defense. They really play good defense, and they are going to absolutely keep this Oregon State team in the mix. We know what to expect from the Pac-12. There's going to be probably some high octane offenses there in the Pac-12, and I think Oregon State's going to be among them with DJU and company. So I'm really excited to see what the transition from the ACC to the Pac-12, where there's no offense to the Pac-12, but there's going to be less pressure out there. He's not going to have the pressure of being at Clemson, replacing Trevor Lawrence, being in the ACC, being at Clemson that comes with all those expectations. And now he gets to go from there to Oregon State, different offense, different play caller, different skill position players around him. I'm really excited to see what DJU looks like. DJ Uyunglele. The chat clearly feels like I can't pronounce his name, so I had to be able to show off there and prove them wrong that I can pronounce his name. Goes to the Pac-12 and is going to be able to play, I think, really good football and really kind of continue to grow. And so we have said at the top of the show that we're not looking at these guys through the draft lens. I'm looking at DJ Uyunglele through that lens, that he could potentially rise because of the way he plays at Oregon State and puts himself back in to the conversation as being a draft prospect. So we'll see. It's going to be up to him. I think he's going to have a great opportunity. I think he needed to kind of reset and get out of Clemson. I think he picked a really good landing spot at Oregon State. And so we'll see ultimately what pans out. But so far, of all the guys that we talked about, maybe Devin Leary, if he can have a really great year in Kentucky. But I look at DJ Uyunglele as one of the guys here that we would potentially have a conversation about in terms of the draft lens by the time the season is over. Shedeur Sanders qualified for this conversation? He can. He's not on my short list of 9 names. I mean, again, listen, guys, there were a ton of names that transferred through the portal. JT Daniels is another guy that moved through the portal. I don't have him down here on the list. So we could be here all day and do a 45, 90-minute podcast talking about all the different transfers in college football. I just wanted to get as much of an all-encompassing, cover the big names, refresher course on some of the guys that you saw in certain places last year or the last couple of years. And then now we're going to go to different places. And so continue to shout out all the names that you guys are thinking about listening to the show. And we will then be able to, I'll weave them in if they're a name that's already on the list. And if they're not on the list, we can have a conversation. But Shedeur Sanders, absolutely a name that fits this, transfer portal quarterback, but just didn't make the list. We'll see. I don't have enough of a read on Sanders to know yet, and we'll see. He's going to, a huge upgrade in competition. He's going to go to Colorado. I mean, fairly or unfairly, expectations are super high in Colorado with Deion being there and all the noise and all the buzz that Deion has made there. So there's going to be a high expectation for what that team's going to look like. I'm skeptical. I've been skeptical since day one. I do not think they're going to be as good as people think they're going to be this year and into the future with Deion. I think it's not going to pan out, but we'll see. They have the opportunity to prove me wrong this year. So, all right, we've talked about Spencer Sanders. We talked about Brennan Armstrong. We talked about DJ Uyunglele. We talked about Devin Leary. Maybe my favorite name on the list. And again, I don't know if the guy's got draft prospects. I don't think so. My gut right now would tell me no. But I watch this guy play. This guy's a gamer, man. He balls out. Guy had a year in which he had 50 total touchdowns. Like, this is a guy that has played really well. I'll give you the statistics, and maybe we'll see if the chat can figure it out, or you listening at home can figure out who I'm talking about. But a guy, 2018, played in 9 games, 1,984 passing yards, 18 total touchdowns, 8 interceptions. 2020, 9 games played, 2,224 passing yards, 15 total touchdowns, 5 interceptions. 2021 played in 14 games, 4,228 passing yards, 364 yards on the ground, 50 total touchdowns, 14 interceptions. In last year, 12 games played, 3,701 passing yards, 39 total touchdowns, 12 interceptions. In 2021 was the ACC leader in passing attempts, was top 10 in completion percentage, was third in passing yards, was second in passing touchdowns, did lead the ACC in interceptions with those 14. But those 50 total touchdowns were tied with Bryce Young for the second most touchdowns responsible for in all of college football. The only player better than Bryce Young and this quarterback that we're about to mention was Bailey Zappi, who was responsible for 65 touchdowns at Western Kentucky this year. And I'm talking about the former quarterback of Wake Forest, Sam Hartman. Guy's a gamer. Guy's a baller. There are pros and cons to the way that he plays, but he goes out there and gives it his all. And now he's going to go from Wake Forest in what is a very, very unique, very, very specific offense to whatever Notre Dame is going to run. And so I don't know if we're going to be able to see what we saw the last 2 years from Sam Hartman. I mean, 39 total touchdowns last year. You look at that and you're like, wow, what a great season. It was down 11 touchdowns from the 50 touchdown year. So, it took a step backwards. But I look at Sam Hartman the last 2 years has been a very, very productive quarterback. And if Notre Dame's going to have is going to have a good season and they're going to be viewed very highly, it's going to be because Sam Hartman is a gamer, is a baller, and he's going to bail them out of some situations. So I'm really very intrigued to see what this looks like going from Wake Forest to Notre Dame. It really has not been a place where quarterbacks have gone and thrived over the last couple of seasons, but we will see what it looks like for Sam Hartman in 2023. Bailey pointing out that the Notre Dame wide receivers were bad last year, need a big bounce back there to give him a chance. Listen, he's a gamer. He's going to figure it out. And I know he's had some pretty decent talent at Wake Forest, right? He had A.T. Perry there over last year, last couple seasons he's had him there. So he's had talent. But I'm really, really intrigued to see what differences we see from Wake Forest and Notre Dame, because I think this dude can ball out. Can Notre Dame support him enough to do so? We've got 4 more names to discuss here on the list. And this is a guy who, look, you've got 2 seasons of a sample size. They're not big sample sizes. Got beaten out by Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers going to be the starter there in Texas. And that's Hudson Card going from Texas to Purdue. Mainly, this is not based on the statistics. Like we talked about with Sam Hartman. There's a big track record of success. Those 2 seasons, 2021, 2022. You look at Devin Leary, 2021, great season. Can he repeat that at Kentucky? DJ Uiagalelei, can he get back to the hype that we saw from him in the lead up to him taking over there at Clemson? Brandon Armstrong, can he be like he was in 2021? Like, I've got years that I can look at for all of these guys and say, can this player be that version of themselves? With Hudson Card, I don't have a big enough sample size. I've got 2021 when he played 7 games, 590 passing yards, 6 total touchdowns, 1 interception. 2022, 12 games played, 928 passing yards, 6 total touchdowns, 1 interception. Now he goes to Purdue. We'll see. He's got a couple years of eligibility left, new change of scenery, opportunity to be the starter. Do we get a better version of him? That's the question that we'll have to solve here with him going to Purdue. But he's going to get a runway. He's going to have a couple years to kind of showcase himself. So we'll see. But he's one of the names that I have on this list. A guy on to stop number 3. Guy's been all over the place. 3 seasons at USC. 1 season with Pitt. He was mentioned in the chat a couple of times at being Keaton Slovis, going from Pittsburgh to BYU. Look, 2019 is the year that when you look at Keaton Slovis, that is the player that you are hoping he can become when you bring Keaton Slovis into your organization. When Pitt brought him in, they were hoping that they could rekindle the 2019 magic in which he replaced JT Daniels, played in 12 games, 3,502 passing yards, 30 total touchdowns, 9 interceptions as a freshman at USC. Since then, has not reached those numbers. 1,900 passing yards in 2020. Again, it was the COVID-shortened season. 2021 in 9 games, 2,153 passing yards. 2022, 11 games played, 2,397 passing yards. And I said he was memorable coming in for JT Daniels in 2019, but could never recapture that magic. Hasn't really recaptured it. Didn't do it at Pitt. Does he do it in BYU now? We'll see. But I think he's one of the bigger names in the portal because of that great year in 2019. And if you are a coaching staff when Keaton Slovis entered the transfer portal, you probably thought internally, we could be the team that gets him back to being the 2019 version of himself. And he decided to go to BYU. Now, when you're on to stop number 3, there are a lot of questions that get asked of you of, okay, are you moving around to just try to find a place where you can be the starter and not really be challenged? But again, I look at what he did in 2019 and say that quarterback's in there somewhere. Can the BYU coaching staff get that out of him? Graham Mertz, the next name here on the list from Wisconsin, going to Florida. And you look at the 2022 being the best year that he's had, the 12 games played, 2,136 passing yards, 21 total touchdowns, 10 interceptions. The real thing here is you're going from Anthony Richardson to Graham Mertz. I don't know how Florida fans feel about that. I know our guy Taylor B is here in the chat. He'll probably give me a really good gauge on this. It can't feel great if you're a Florida fan. Excuse me, going from Anthony Richardson to Graham Mertz. Probably don't feel great about it, but he's probably just a steady, stable quarterback that can get you through getting your next guy in the recruiting side of things to be able to help you out long term. But yeah, I mean, you look at 2022 as the best year of his career so far in college, and replacing Anthony Richardson is a very, very tall task. The last name that I have on my list, and we've seen a couple of names in the chat that I'll shout out here, and that's Jeff Sims. Going from Georgia Tech to Nebraska. I will tell you, Taylor B says, I feel great about it, Chris. What do you mean with the emoji of the upside down face? So it doesn't really feel great about it. I hope the sarcasm came through there. Jeff Sims, I mean, this guy that's a true dual threat quarterback going from Georgia Tech to Nebraska. 2020, 10 games played, 1,881 passing yards, 492 rushing yards, 19 total touchdowns, 13 interceptions. 2021, 8 games played, 1,468 passing yards, 372 rushing yards, 16 total touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And then last year, 7 games played, 1,115 passing yards, 288 rushing yards, 6 total touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. And the question about Jeff Sims is, can he stay healthy? Battled injuries in 2021, started only 6 games. Started only 7 games last year before being sidelined with injuries. And so the question is, can he stay healthy enough to give Nebraska maybe what he was in 2020, which was a true dual threat guy, not going to really wow you through the air, but it's going to be able to give you that dual threat nature. That could be pretty helpful for a Nebraska team that's looking to turn things around with Matt Rule there in his first year at Nebraska. So a notable name here on this list, again, dual threat QB. Can he get back to the 2020 version of himself? Injuries have kind of plagued him a little bit. Sam Teets provided a list of some of his favorite transfers. Spencer Sanders to Ole Miss, Tanner Mordecai to Wisconsin. I don't want to discuss Tanner Mordecai. Jeff Sims to Nebraska, Drew Pine to ASU, Colin Schlee to UCLA, and Peyton Thorne to Auburn were some of my favorite transfers. Sportsnut asks, who has a bigger year, Slovis at BYU or Djokovic at Pitt? Oh, man. Djokovic is a guy that had such high hopes for Boston College, really kind of flashed 2 years ago, right? And then just didn't have a really good year this year. I say Slovis, but they're pretty close. They're very similar in terms of tier, I think, of quarterback. Connor Bazelak to Bowling Green, mentioned by Heldy. Or Baslak. Is another name that's been mentioned. Let me see. Is there anybody else in the chat that I've seen get mentioned that I haven't? Emory Jones being transferred. I mentioned Jack Plummer a little bit earlier. There are a lot of names that classify for this list. We could be here all day, like I said, and we could be here all day with all of these positions that we talk about. When we do running backs, when we do wide receivers, like there are going to be names that go at length here when doing this list. But it felt as if with college football right around the corner, and in today's day and age, you just forget. Guys enter and withdraw and go back in and go to a team and then change their mind. The transfer portal is great. I'm a big supporter of it. I'm a big supporter of giving these kids the opportunity to make these changes. Big supporter of NIL and all the stuff that proceeds this stuff happening. But it can be a little confusing if you are not in tune with it on a pretty regular basis to look up in the middle of August and go, that guy's on that team. And so it felt like it would be a great service here for us because it's what we're going to focus here on this show. Like during the season, during the football season, we are going to be doing college-related shows here on this show. We're going to be doing NFL-related shows. We're going to mix it in. And so it's important to know where these guys are, and it's important to have those conversations. So it felt like a good refresher course here over the next couple of weeks would be a worthwhile experience. So we're going to do this the same way we did the positional ranking shows where we're going to bounce back and forth. So not every day. The next show will be on Wednesday. Gives me time to do some research and we can get through that. But there you have it. A refresher course, some other names in the chats that have been thrown out there. Brady Allen going to Louisville. Cade McNamara at Iowa. Yeah, again, we could be here all day, guys. There are a ton of different names here on the list. I highlighted 9 that really stood out to me throughout this process. But that is going to do it for us here on this edition of the show. Like I said, trying to nurse this voice throughout the week and try to take some medicine and keep the voice as fresh as possible for all the content that we've got planned here this week and in the coming weeks here on the show. We greatly appreciate you stopping by, being a part of the show. Please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, share the show. We greatly appreciate all of those things. Really helps us continue to grow this community that we have developed here throughout the offseason. And it is only going to get better, I think, during the season when we have actual football mock drafts and all that stuff to discuss here on the show. So looking forward to it. So we want you to be a part of the journey. So please rate, review, subscribe, and share the show. Join us on the YouTube side of things Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can join us and be a part of the show on the YouTube side of things. You can see the video version of the show. You can't join us at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but you still want to see the video version of the show, you can do so. The Draft Network YouTube channel. Just click on that live tab. All of the VODs, the videos on demand, are there so you can catch the show whenever you want. And if you join us live, you can be a part of the pre and the post show, which we're going to get into here in just a second. So I appreciate everybody making this show a part of their day. Hope everybody has a great rest of their Monday, and we'll talk to you all tomorrow. Ooh, I had to let that cough out. Sorry, folks. We got through the show with only one. For the post show, look at Notre Dame's coaching staff directory. Why is every coach sponsored? Okay, Notre Dame. What do we think of that show? I felt really good. I think for me, I feel really comfortable when I can kind of riff like that and share my opinions about college football because I just love college football so much. Am I the most in tune with it? No, but I just love college football, and so it felt like a fun start to what will be an interesting series here over the next couple of weeks. So I want to see the coaching staff. Is that what you're asking me to do? More. Schedule team roster under the roster. This is the roster. I want the coaching staff, multimedia, athletic communications, quick facts, more. It is good. Excited to start doing more college draft stuff for the next few weeks. You sent the link. Did you put it in the Discord? Because Taylor B, I don't think we allow links in the YouTube chat. For a lot of reasons. Notre Dame. You just put it in the Discord. Perfect. I'll click on it here in just a second. All right. You're right. Every coach is sponsored, and not by a company, but by I guess a donor to the school. Like Marcus Freeman is the Dick Corbett head football coach. He's not just the head football coach. Al Golden is the Bob Hinton defensive coordinator linebacker. Shout out to my guy Marty Biaggi, who is the special teams coordinator. Nobody wants to sponsor the special teams coach. Nobody wants to be that guy. Gerard Parker is the John and Bobby Arletta family offensive coordinator tight ends. At this point, what are we doing? What are we doing? What's the game you're most looking forward to? What's the game you're looking forward to the most week 1 and 2 in college football as a fan and a scout? All right, we'll pull up the schedule. Just to refresh my memory on what the... Imagine Bill Barnwell doing a story on ESPN.com ranking NFL teams by offensive arsenals. We went 1 to 32 based on wide receiver, running back, and tight end. I feel like we have to. I know I said I wasn't going to talk for 45 minutes. We might have to go through this list and see how it compares to our list. We might have to do this. Bill Barnwell, huge fan of the show. I like Bill a lot. Bill has some weird takes at times, but I like Bill a lot. Sorry, Sports On. I will get to your question here because it appears as though the post show is going to take on a life of its own. NCAA football is what I'm looking for, and then I'm looking for the schedule. Let me look at this. I'm looking at week 1. Nothing on Saturday. Nothing on August 26th in week 0. It excites me. Thursday, August 31. Florida, Utah is probably going to be interesting. It's going to be a fun game on Thursday. I'll clear the schedule for that for sure. As a fan, to answer your question, Sports Nut, that one really excites me. And that's on Thursday, so you really... Sorry. ASU debuts that week too. That's their first game they play at 7, but I'll definitely watch Florida, Utah. I don't know. I always like watching Utah play. On Saturday, week 1, what game? game really stands out to me? I'm scrolling. I'm just looking. Like Oregon plays Portland State, so that's not really gonna do a whole lot for me. What do we got here? West Virginia plays Penn State. I mean, personally, I'll be invested in that one. There's not a whole lot week 1 that like jumps out to me unless I'm missing a game. But like Ole Miss plays Mercer. Like everyone's kind of playing some cupcakes in the week 1. You may like watching Utah play, but you won't enjoy watching Florida. That's probably fair. I mean, Billy Napier, you're gonna ruin my guy Ricky Pearsall. All right, let's go to week 2 because week 1 doesn't really do a whole lot for me. What does week 2 got? Week 2 has Notre Dame, NC State might be interesting. Iowa State that early in the season will be interesting. Alabama, Texas in week 2. Oregon, Texas Tech. I mean, I'm a sucker for a good old UCF Boise State matchup. FSU, LSU, not week 1. See, this is why you asked the question. Where did I just miss them? I feel like I did. I feel like I would have seen them. TCU. It's probably a terrible way to do this the way I'm doing this on. Oh, LSU Florida State's on Sunday. Yeah. Okay. I was looking. I was so lasered in on Saturday. Yeah, LSU Florida State. Sam Teets, Chris. If you want to sound like the smartest man in the room, QBs to scout are Michael Pratt, Colin Schlee, Riley Leonard, and Shadir Sanders. I still need to watch Leonard and Sanders. You guys know I'm going next week to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and Jamie's on vacation, and so we've recorded a bunch of shows. So I've got more free time because those shows were already recorded. So I am going to watch some quarterbacks next week. Tuttle says, I came in very late. I'll catch the VOD later, but it is a great topic. Tracking all the player movement has been tough. Yeah, and again, we're not going to be able to track every single player. Like we're just not. And so we're just going to try to highlight the big names, the guys who were super productive last year, maybe the guys with some high upside, or maybe a new they can channel what their scouting report was or their recruiting profile was in a new place. Like those types of players are the ones that are really going to stand out to me doing this process. All right. So I've got this Barnwell thing open. And so I'm not going to read the whole story. It's time. I'll read the intro to you guys. It's time for one of my favorite annual offseason features. I've taken a close look at the playmakers for each of the NFL's 32 teams and ranked them worst to first for what they could do in the 2023 campaign, all else being equal. This is only about on-field performance for the 2023 season. Injury history and suspensions matter. Wide receivers are weighted more heavily than running backs or tight ends. The focus is on elite players and a team's top 5 contributors. Efficiency matters. Okay, so he grouped it all together. Is it possible to get an NFL prospect with as much hype as Victor Wembanyama? I saw San Antonio sold out their arena for his introduction. Is it possible to get an NFL prospect with as much hype as Victor Wembanyama? I don't think so. The NBA is such a different game than the NFL in terms of readiness. Like, he is a once-in-a-generational prospect, but he's still a raw player. And don't confuse me with a notorious NBA scout. Like, my claim to fame in the NBA draft thing was I told everybody that way ahead of time that Luka Doncic should have been the number 1 pick, and the Suns should take Luka Doncic, and they would regret not taking him after they won the lottery. Like, that's my claim to fame. Like, I was on the Luka Doncic bandwagon before it was cool to be on the Luka Doncic bandwagon. So don't confuse me with being an NBA scout. But Victor Wembanyama is a just like once-in-a-generational can't-miss prospect. Like, I just don't know if that... I just don't know. And he also was, like, not a college player. He was playing in, like, the G League or whatever it was. I keep seeing bigger names in this space talking about him as the third guy in this class. He won't be in my top 6, and I have more guys to go that could jump him. Oh, you guys talking about Bo Nix? You would need a big market to have the number 1 pick with an elite big school quarterback prospect, probably. Yeah, probably, Bailey. And with Bo Nix, real quick, like, if he has another good year at Oregon, he's probably going to do the all-star circuit in some capacity, too. And so if he has a good year, and then he goes to, like, Mobile and has a great Senior Bowl, plays really well. That can help him out a ton. That can really help. All right, do we want to try to guess? Do we want to try to guess the top 5 for Barnwell here? So he ranked wide receiver, tight end, and running backs are all together. He hasn't separated them out by position. It's only about on-field performance for this season. Injury history and suspensions matter. Wide receivers are weighted more heavily than running backs or tight ends, and the focus is on elite players and a team's top 5 contributors. And efficiency matters. Do we want to try to guess the top 5? Do we want to try to guess the top 5? And I will tell you, after seeing the top 5, you guys are going to be upset. You guys are going to be very angry at this list. Bailey, you've got the number 1 team. You've got the number 1 team. It's the 49ers. It's really just an efficiency thing. And there's a stat in here that he shares from Mina Kimes that says the offense before Christian McCaffrey got there was 21st in DVOA, 19th in EPA per play, 26th in QBR, and 10th in yards per attempt. After CMC got there, they were first in DVOA, first in EPA per play, second in QBR, and second in yards per attempt. The Bengals, number 2 on this list. They were number 2 on this list. One of the things he points out is going from Hayden Hurst to Irv Smith is a downgrade. But you've got the top 2, the 49ers and the Bengals. You got 3 more teams to guess. And I'll tell you, he's got like a team like Philly's number 3, Taylor, but you guys are going in order. Philly is number 3. The Lions were a guess. The Lions are not in the top 5. I got to find where the Lions are. Stand by. By the way, the Raiders are at number 11 on this list, just so we're clear. Steelers are 13 on this list, just so we're clear. The Lions are 16, by the way. The Chargers, number 5 on the list. The 1 team left in the top 5. You guys got the 49ers, you guys got the Bengals, you got the Eagles, and you got the Chargers. The Cowboys, number 7 on the list. Number 7 for the Cowboys. The Browns. The Browns number 12. Taylor B, I'm not telling you where Arizona's ranked. Not doing that. Not in the top 5. I'll give you guys one more guess before I reveal the team to you. The Seahawks. Yes, Bailey. Yes. The Seahawks. He's weighting the running backs heavily. So that the wide receivers heavily. So yes. So the Seahawks are 4. Taylor B said the Jags. The Jags were a top 10 team. They were 9. And the Jets were the Jets were 22. Jets were 22. So they got that list from Bill Barnwell. Can you explain the grading criteria again? That would require me to pull up the story again. So let me just stand by. Only about on-field. So it's ranking the playmakers for each NFL team. So wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs, combining them all together and just grading the skill position players. And it's only about on-field performance for the 2023 season. Injury history and suspensions matter. Wide receivers are weighted more heavily than running backs or tight ends. The focus is on elite players and a team's top 5 contributors. Efficiency matters. And those are all the rules. Those are all the rules. Those are the rules. Yeah, those are the rules. But all right, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. I've got to edit this show and get it ready for the podcast audience. So appreciate everybody being here. We've got one more show in between now and our next uh, transfer portal show. So I don't know what we're gonna do on tomorrow's show, but I'm sure I'll let you know pretty soon um, once I figure it out. So appreciate everybody being here. Hope you all have a great rest of your Monday. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.